entertainmentbuddha.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode from the Pushing Payload podcast. I'm your host, White Polar, and I'd like to thank everyone that took the time out of their day to listen to our first episode, which aired late last week. As always, we continue to encourage you guys to send in feedback, provide comments, suggestions, ideas, even topics you'd like us to cover, because part of the goal with this opportunity is to develop a community that we can engage with. And the only way that we can do that in this journey is, of course, by having listeners, but also listeners who speak out and give us opinions about what we can do to improve the show. So again, I just want to thank everyone who took the time to listen to that first episode. There was a lot of work put into it, as well as a lot of fun that we had. So we hope you guys enjoy and stick with us going forward. So this is a segment that we like to call Quickfire. And this is an area where either Lazy Panda or myself are going to talk to you guys and generate some open dialogue and discussion about an idea, an opinion, or a piece of news that came out that's related to the Overwatch game itself, the community, or the league. And today I'm going to talk to you guys about something that I think is missing from the Overwatch League that I think is crucial to the success of it. So Friday I come home from work and I flip up I turn on my laptop and I switch it over to the Overwatch League, and I begin to catch up on some of the matches that transpired over this week. And I'm watching the Boston Fuel face off against the Shanghai Dragons. And as I'm watching this match, I can't help but feel like there's something missing. There's just something that's missing, for me at least, that feels connected to this Overwatch League and really a part of it. I mean, don't you guys feel that way? Right? Don't you kind of feel like you're not really a part of the league? You're just watching maybe your favorite player. At least for me, I look at it as I'm watching just a group of players who are identified by two distinct teams play against each other. And I feel like there's some kind of obstacle, some kind of barrier that's stopping me from feeling connected and feeling like I'm a part of this Overwatch League. So here's the big idea for today's podcast. Using 3 words, how would you describe the culture of the Overwatch League? If you're in a discussion with a buddy and you guys are watching a match, or maybe you're just talking about the game casually while playing online, what 3 words would you use to describe the culture of the Overwatch League? Here's my 3. I've got exclusive, non-existent, and disengaged. Those are my 3 words. Here's how I arrived at those 3. Because when I'm watching it, right, like a match will start and we watch our players come into the arena. They high-five the fans. There's a little bit of excitement there. They go ahead and take their seats, and then the analysts will talk about what to watch out for and who they think's going to win, and then the match will actually start. And ironically, that's where I find one of the biggest problems to be. Right, when the match starts, you should be engaged in it. Right? You should be cheering your team on. You should be going crazy and performing chants and, getting excited about this conflict that's about to happen in the virtual battlefield. But instead, it's a lot of silence. It's a lot of people seeming disengaged, only to cheer occasionally and get somewhat excited when they see an elimination happen. And the announcers are doing everything they can to put some energy into it, but the environment itself is rather disengaged. It's non-existent. People aren't participating. I'll give you a perfect example. You go to Alabama and you talk to some of the locals that are down there. They have a unique way of signing off with people. They say roll tide. You can actually go on YouTube and watch a commercial that ESPN does, kind of not necessarily making fun of it, but promoting sports culture. And I talked to some people who actually have worked in Alabama and done some stuff there, and they say that the commercial itself is actually pretty accurate. You know why people say roll tide down in Alabama? It's a reference to the college football program there, the Alabama Crimson Tide. dominant. Currently in a dynasty right now, some would argue. In Alabama, they don't have a professional sports team. There is no NFL team, no NBA team. They don't really care about that stuff. You know what they care about? They care about their college football team. That is it, man. That is all they care about. College football down there is not just a extracurricular activity. It's not just a casual sporting event that they go to. It is a way of life. And there is a culture down there that exists where that team is constantly under pressure to perform, to exceed expectations, and to bring home a national title. If you tune in and watch an Alabama Crimson Tide football game, you will see the stadium is always packed. The fans are on their seat at the edge of their seats, cheering away and booing the other team and damning the refs and all that stuff. All the stuff that brings you into a sporting event and really engages you in the culture of it. They're a prime example of it. Now, I don't need to just cite an example like that. I can actually give you a personal one, which is when I went to the New York Yankees baseball game a few years back. It was my first one I had ever been to. And I was blown away by just how engaged the crowd was on a Thursday night baseball game. When I walked into this stadium, there's a lot of history. And to just kind of paint the picture here a bit, the New York Yankees, you can argue, are probably the greatest sports franchise in the world. They've captured 27 World Series. They've made billions and billions of dollars off of their success and history. And they're easily the most recognized organization in sports globally. When you go to a Yankees game, it is a different experience than other sporting events. Fans constantly wearing shirts about their team and how many titles they've won. Fans are constantly standing up and yelling at the umpires. Players come up to bat and they have specific chants for these players. The music pumps to get people engaged in the competition. Back in the day, there was a fantastic player. He's easily going to be in the Hall of Fame, Mariano Rivera, who was their closer. The guy that would come out and pitch essentially the last inning and close the game down if their team was ahead. And this guy, when he would step out from the bullpen and enter the baseball field, there was a specific song that was played for him. The fans had a specific chant for him, and people would actually bow in the stands to this guy. That's how legendary he was. And that's the kind of culture that the New York Yankees had. It is a culture that is focused on winning, fan participation, and engagement. And you just don't feel that with the Overwatch League. Like, once the players take their seats and they begin to play the game, everyone kind of gets quiet in the arena with the occasional cheer for an elimination. Culture is a real thing, folks. I have years of experience working with organizations that have none and have high turnover, terrible leader, and they're just kind of sinking. I've worked with organizations who recognize what value a culture brings to them, and they're working on it. And sure, there's a couple of rough edges, but they're committed to it and they're developing it. And then I've worked with organizations who are outstanding in what they do. They understand what their culture is. They recognize how to grow and develop it. There is a real return on investing in your culture. And Blizzard should take note of this, because it is the X factor or the it that will carry this league and grow it to expand to more viewers, to attract more people into its products and the game itself. Blizzard would be wise to look into the culture of the Overwatch League and fix it so that it actually engages the viewers. It actually brings the new people in, and it feels like a warm welcome to a sport that maybe not many people know exists. Here's what culture will do for the Overwatch League. It will definitely boost the viewership there. It'll bring in people who have maybe never heard of the sport, maybe never even heard of the game, but it'll bring people in who are not just exclusive to the game itself and familiar with the characters. There's an identity. there are so many different esport leagues right now that are currently going on. And sure, Overwatch, based on name and reputation and the fact that it's developed by Blizzard, certainly has a unique identity and a leg up there. But what we're talking about here is Blizzard, sure, based on name and reputation and the success of the game itself. I believe they have somewhere around 30 million people, or they've sold 30 million copies, will be able to have an identity. But what we're talking about is something more than that. Something that when they decide to make an Overwatch 2, or they have some new way of expanding into the market, or developing viewership, or expanding their products, that this culture is a part of it and it grows with them. I haven't seen recently any reports also commenting on the amount of viewers that Blizzard and the Overwatch League are pulling in. Now, back when this first launched, there were tons of articles coming out talking about the success of the viewership, and to obviously also expect a decline in viewership. So we know from when the league first launched that there were over 440,000 people watching and tuning in. And obviously that number declined a little bit over the next couple of weeks. And after that, we really haven't heard a whole lot. We haven't heard anything about how the viewership's doing, or articles tracking how successful this is. But you know what we did hear? There was an article released earlier this week, or I should say several pieces of news media were covering this in the gaming world, that now when you link your Battle.net account to Twitch and you tune in to watch one of the Overwatch League games, you'll actually be able to start getting Overwatch tokens to buy a skin in the game. So it's an incentive. That's what they're doing. They're giving you an incentive for those of you who already play the game to tune in and watch. That's not a good sign, in my opinion. Sure, I like it. Sure, it's nice. I get a token for every map that's completed, I think, or every match that's completed, something like that. And that's nice, but it doesn't help the actual league itself. It's an incentive to just get those people who may be complaining a little bit, or maybe a little disengaged in watching the viewership, or the actual sports and the sport itself, another incentive to stay. And that last word there is what's really, I'm going to underline here, to stay, not to grow, to stay. This piece of news here isn't going to entice my fiance to watch the Overwatch League with me. She doesn't care. She's sitting there, she's thinking, the hell am I going to do with an Overwatch token? What is it? How much is it actually worth? She doesn't care about that. And I'm not suggesting that my fiance is the ideal audience member that Blizzard should go after. But what she is she's low-hanging fruit. She's connected to me, and I already watch the league, so she may want to watch too. This article and this news coverage around the tokens per view and watching the maps and getting that incentive is great for someone like me that's already playing and is an active member and plans on being more active in the community. But it's kind of, I think this strategy and this rollout is a strategy that says, let's play to not lose with this league rather than play to win with this league. I would have appreciated if there was more coverage around the improvements that Blizzard was going to make to improve the camera work in the actual match themselves, to make the arenas more engaging. Like when you see a player on one of the teams catch on fire, it'd be great if the screen behind them started to light up on fire, if there was a way in the audience to actually designate that. I'm looking for articles and information about Blizzard engaging the crowd more that's participating, coming up with chants, being involved in the action versus just standing by as a pedestrian watching these two teams compete against each other. And these are things that, as this league rolls out, and it's only been out there for a couple months at most, or about a month, these are things that Blizzard is going to work out, and they're going to hopefully improve on as we as a community provide feedback. Now, we're winding down this segment, and before we sign off here and I wrap this up, I want you to close your eyes and paint this image in your head with me. Imagine 20 years from now, you go to a high school that your child is currently enrolled in. You're not going there to see them play in their concert band. You're not going there to see them play in the high school football game. All great activities, all great ways of kids getting to know one another. But instead, your child decided to participate in the high school sport team, the video game sport team there. And maybe it's Overwatch 5 at that point. That's the kind of potential the eSport League, the esports in general, have. And that's the kind of potential that the Overwatch League can unlock. I firmly believe in 20 years from now, these kind of games are going to be administered in school, and there will be competitive games, school sponsored. Now open your eyes and think about reality right now. Think about how boring the matches are in a way. Not the action that happens between the two teams, but think about how engaged the crowd is. It goes back to my 3 words that I would use to describe the culture currently right now for the Overwatch League. Disengaged, exclusive, and non-existent. There's one more image that I want to leave you with. Close your eyes and imagine on a Saturday afternoon, you're going to an arena with your family. You get your ticket, you grab some popcorn, some drinks, or whatever the case is. You go into this arena. The seats have different levels of elevation, so you can kind of get a full view of the playing field. You have one side that's wearing white and orange, and another side wearing red and black, and it's the Philadelphia Fusion and the Shanghai Dragons. The players come in, and the crowd's going wild. They have noisemakers, the music's playing. Maybe this time the announcers do it by player, and each player comes out after their name's called, and the crowd goes crazy. The teams sit down, and they put on their headsets, and they start to engage in the battle. And as this is going on, you hear music in the stadium. You hear iconic lines from the game, from Soldier 76 and Reaper shooting back and forth. You hear a Reinhardt using his ultimate and a Zenyatta using his ultimate to counter it. And you're able to see all of this, and the crowd is going absolutely crazy. They start doing the wave. They start getting into chants. Maybe they even start making fun of the other team just because they're up so much in the match. That's the kind of future that I would love to see this league tap into and unlock. But everything that I'm describing to you in this concluding moment, in this minute, all goes back to culture. That's where it starts. So I just painted the end result that I think would bring in huge amounts of revenue to the organization, exposure to the league, but we're not there yet. It hasn't penetrated the market yet. It hasn't hit that curve yet where it's able to spread to everyone. All right, right now it's just kind of like an exclusive thing. Hey, if you play Overwatch and you enjoy it, come check out the league where all the competitive and best players play. It needs to do more than that. It's going to hit a ceiling at some point, and it'll need to expand and reach into different viewerships and different demographics to garner more interest, to get more people interested in paying attention to the league. And like I mentioned before, it's all about the culture. It's all about the culture that Blizzard wants to establish and grow moving forward. And as that culture becomes more successful, more ingrained, and adopted by the viewership, so will the amount of people who pay attention to this esport league going forward. So that's it for our first episode under the Quickfire series. What did you guys think of it? Did you like some of the points that I bring up? Are you curious about looking into it more? Did you disagree? We'd love to hear from you. As I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, please continue to send in feedback, as we're always trying to produce a show that produces better content and is also just more enjoyable to listen to. So thank you again for taking the time to listen to me. I hope I gave you something to think about. Peace out, continue pushing those payloads, and we'll see you on the next episode.